your state shifts in accordance with your conscious or unconscious interpretation of the circumstance in front of you. Now that means that you literally recreate the same reality over and over and over again. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena and I am a somatic self-concept and manifestation coach, and I support women to shift their self-concept, embody their highest potential, a new identity, a new way of being and living, so that you can essentially bridge the gap between who you currently are or see yourself as and who you desire to be or become. And that will enable you to call in the things that you truly desire in your life, your authentic soul desires that are meant for you. If you like this type of content, then please do leave a like. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. You can also leave comments below. I love hearing from you. I love connecting with you even on Instagram and my DMs. And I also invite you to check out the links in the description box below, because there's a bunch of free resources and of course information on how to apply to my coaching program. But now let's get into today's topic. Today we're talking about the meaning of your circumstances and the meaning that you may assign to your circumstances or to yourself. Why circumstances truly do not matter, something you probably hear all the time when you're in the manifestation community or even law of assumption community, and what assigning meaning does to your manifestation process. So let's first talk about this idea that circumstances don't matter. And there are situations in which they do not matter and in which they do matter. Let me explain. So the true meaning of circumstances don't matter is often misconstrued. People tend to take it as, I am ignoring what I'm seeing, I'm pretending it's not there. But circumstances don't matter doesn't mean resisting more or pushing harder or pretending you're not seeing something or experiencing something that is obviously impacting you or that you're obviously experiencing. It does not mean that you pretend that something doesn't exist when it's actually probably really bothering you. What it does mean is that you should not and don't have to let whatever your current circumstances are hold you back. Don't let them hold you back from making your desires a reality, from moving towards them, regardless of what your circumstances look like in this moment. I do not care. I mean, I do, because I care about you. But whatever it is, you can absolutely move out of it. You just need to be brave enough to take the steps to make a change. Now, when do circumstances matter? And I kind of touched on this, when you shouldn't ignore them. Because you shouldn't. You truly shouldn't ignore what is happening. You can embrace it and still move forward. You don't have to lie to yourself to make things manifest. You really don't. It can all coexist. In fact, you actually want to face your circumstances instead of ignore them or deny them. The more you deny them, in fact, the more you suppress them, the more it festers in your subconscious, the more you're actually perpetuating the exact thing that you don't want. I will link a video somewhere over my head. I have been doing this for years and I still never know which way to point, which is all about your shadow and how your subconscious mind creates your reality. Actually, I have multiple videos on this. I will link them all in the description below. But let me give you some examples as to why this is also so important to face your circumstances, even if they are the opposite of what you want. A common pattern that I see when people want to, let's say, manifest money is that they avoid looking at their bank account. They avoid looking at their bills. They avoid talking about the situation that they're facing. They avoid talking about that they would like to have more. I talk to people all the time who, for example, people who want to work with me but who don't want to face their limiting beliefs around money, and it often turns out that they actually have thousands and thousands in their bank account or in their savings, and they're just paralyzed out of fear, which is a natural thing. And face what you have, look at what you have, no matter how much that is. Because if you're avoiding what you already have, you're avoiding money in general. If you're in a state of avoidance of what is, you cannot create more. Or another example is, let's say you are in a relationship and your partner is cheating on you. And then you pretend like it's not happening. Now, what does that do? That actually pushes the emotional charges, because that will create emotional charges if you actually know that they're cheating on you or you have a suspicion, but you pretend that that's not happening. You will have certain emotions about that. You will probably feel betrayed. You will feel like your trust is broken. You will be grieving. You will be angry. And if you're not acknowledging that, the situation and the emotions, you will push them further down into your subconscious. And the more you push them into your subconscious, the more that will actually fester and become a more established belief system. Whatever it is that you're facing, it doesn't make the problem go away if you ignore it. It doesn't. So circumstances do matter, but they just don't matter in the sense that they do not hold you back from creating a different reality and from manifesting what you desire. Now that we've established that, let's talk about assigning meaning in the manifestation process. And obviously that has a lot to do with your circumstances, because it has to do with how you see your circumstances and how that impacts the future that you create. Reality is based on perception. And when I say that, I mean that nothing is exactly as it seems. What I see and perceive with all of my senses is not exactly what reality looks like. And we know this because we're all limited in our perception. And there are animals who see more colors, who perceive other sounds or frequencies that we can't perceive. And even when we take this human to human, there is absolutely no guarantee that the blue in the sky that you see is the same blue that I see. In fact, most likely it differs. Your brain will interpret the reality that you see based on the most likely outcome. Now, how does your brain determine what is most likely? It's based on how things have been in the past. So that is applicable on a collective level and evolution and how humans have developed over time, but it's also based on an individual level and how you have experienced your life up until this point. That impacts the interpretations that you put on the things that you see, the meanings that you assign to events, circumstances, people. Why does your brain do this? Because it's freaking lazy. And that is actually a really great thing, because it would be absolutely exhausting to constantly have to think about everything from a fresh perspective. Having to consciously evaluate something new every time would be a lot of work for your brain. Now, what does that mean for the manifestation process? It means that with anything you experience in your daily life, in your reality, you immediately assign a meaning. So this happens automatically and it happens unconsciously. Sometimes you can catch the meaning. Sometimes you notice, I'm making an assumption here and it's not necessarily true. And that's why a lot of people do so much work around their mindset, which is definitely super supportive. But very often, the meaning is so unconscious because it's based on your identity, it's based on your past experience, it's based on your trauma, what you've experienced in the past, it's based on everything that is going on in your subconscious. It's based on the state of your nervous system, so much. And it's so individual. How you interpret an event will be completely different, maybe, from how I might interpret the same event based on our differing experience. You will assign the meaning based on the most likely outcome due to your own bias based on your past experience. Now, the problem is, based on the meaning that you assign, you will begin to act and react differently. You will begin to respond in ways that agree with that often unconscious interpretation of reality, even when you don't want to. And not only that, it's not just the active reaction, it's also energy doesn't lie. Your state shifts in accordance with your conscious or unconscious interpretation of the circumstance in front of you. Now that means that you literally recreate the same reality over and over and over again. because you, without wanting it, let the meaning you assign to circumstances define how you show up and therefore determine what happens next. It essentially becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and a repetitive cycle. Now that gets even more interesting when it comes to your self-concept. Because not only do you assign meaning to circumstances about the future and what that means, you also assign a meaning about what circumstances mean about yourself, what experiences that you're having mean about you, what's possible for you, and who you are. And this also works the other way around. The meaning that you assign to an event or circumstances in the first place is based on and biased by, I guess, your self-concept or your perception of yourself. Very simple example, someone you like, you're kind of into, you have a little crush on, doesn't text you back. Now, you'll have some assignment of a meaning of what that means based on your past experience with that particular person, your past experience with other people, be that in a romantic context of the same sex or gender. It can also be experiences with people in general, but it also depends on your self-concept. So when someone doesn't text you back, who you like, and you have a secure self-concept, you might not give it that much thought at all. You might not even notice that that happened, or you might notice way in the future because it's not such a big deal to you, because it doesn't impact how you think about yourself. On the extreme end, maybe you're overly confident. Well, then maybe the thought that it could have something to do with you at all might not even enter your consciousness. That's also not always the best thing, by the way, because it takes out the discernment from the situations that you are experiencing. Now, on the flip side, if you have any form of insecurity attached to your self-concept, so maybe self-doubt, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, low self-worth, a past experience of being left, cheated on, abandoned, not chosen, well, now your automatic assumption might be that they don't like you, that they aren't interested, or that you're going to get hurt. It could even be an automatic assumption of a generalization, like I will never find anyone, I will never be chosen. So it might even get more extreme than that. So you see how you interpret the circumstance based on your past experience, based on your past trauma, based on your self-concept, and that interpretation then recreates the same reality or a similar reality. It repeats the cycle, and ultimately it reaffirms the very self-concept that you had from the beginning. So when you interpret that circumstance from a place of insecurity, in whatever form that takes, it's nuanced, right? But you're gonna show up differently based on that. This can look like you pull back, you go into avoidance out of fear of getting hurt. You essentially give them a taste of their own medicine, silent treatment. You play hard to get when they actually do show interest. Or maybe you go into the other direction, you begin the chase. You text them more or call them more, or you begin asking them weird questions to kind of figure out where they are at and whether they like you. Or maybe you don't do any of these things and you don't actively do anything, but your state and your energy shift, because that will happen, which is why it does really start with your state of being, your nervous system, and your self-concept, the identity that you embody, that you perceive yourself from. Now that's important too, because even if you don't do anything, when your state shifts and your energy shifts, even if your assumption, the meaning that you assign, is not true, they will begin to perceive you differently too. Because you cannot hide your true feelings or beliefs no matter how much you try. It's also important to note that assumptions, I've mentioned the word assumption, I think a couple times here, assumptions aren't chosen either. They also happen automatically and unconsciously. Now, that does not mean that they are unchangeable. You absolutely can change them, but you don't change them by just thinking a different thought. You need to get to the root of the belief in your psyche, which has been created through the experiences you've made in the past. And by the way, this does not mean overanalyzing it. This does not mean having to figure out where it came from. You just need to find the root so you can process it and so that you can release that emotional charge for good. But when you reprogram that belief at the core, in your system, in your psyche, in your subconscious, then the automatic assumptions that you have will change automatically without you having to force or try anything. Now, let's do a little run through. How do you treat your circumstances when they show up? Number 1, don't ignore them, face them. Number 2, learn from the obstacles that they present to you. Number 3, get awareness on the meaning that you are assigning to that circumstance. Now, the tricky thing here is that whilst awareness is great, this is also an easy window to go into overanalysis, which is not going to help you. Awareness is only the first step. You then need to actually make changes and integrate new belief systems. Which brings me to number 4, get help with that. Get help integrating new beliefs, get a coach, get a mentor, get a guide who can support you in not just shifting your perception, but actually reprogramming your belief system at the core so that your state, as I said, shifts naturally and automatically. And the meaning that you assign to circumstances will also shift automatically. So you don't have to manage your thoughts all of the time. And number 5, use it as fuel. Let your circumstances and obstacles make you even more determined. Let it make you more determined to break these patterns and create a different or new future. Leave me a comment below and let me know, what meaning do you choose to assign your reality going forward? Obviously, as I said, it's not as simple as just choosing a different meaning because of the unconscious or subconscious element, but we can have the intention. And intention is definitely the force that will get you started. I'll see you in the next video.